Hello, this is Zahirul. Welcome you on Frankly Speaking. My guest today is Her Excellency Ms. Julia Niblett. She is the High Commissioner of Australia in Bangladesh since July 2016. And we are welcoming High Commissioner Ms. Julia Niblett on Frankly Speaking, and we'll discuss about our bilateral relations. We are welcoming High Commissioner. Welcome.
Thank you, Zahir.
It's my pleasure having you on my show today.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's been 2 years. How does it feel after passing 2 years?
It feels great. I've had a very busy 2 years here, and I set myself some objectives and goals I wanted to meet, and I think I'm well on the way to achieving those. I obviously wanted to enhance the bilateral relationship between our two countries, but I also wanted to strengthen the trade and investment relationship, and I think we're seeing some real growth there already. I really wanted to build on the people-to-people links between our two countries, and these have arisen largely around education links, but also migration. And I also wanted to support and highlight the work we do that contributes to the enhancement of security and prosperity in Bangladesh through our development assistance program.
We are old friends, and Australia was one of the first countries to recognize Bangladesh after it's achieved independence in 1971. So, I mean, how it has been developed over the years, over the decades?
Well, you're right. Australia was one of the first countries to recognise independent Bangladesh. But during the Liberation War, your viewers may also be aware that an Australian of Dutch origin fought with the freedom fighters, and in fact, because of the contribution that he made, he was awarded the Bir Protik, the fourth highest gallantry award, and he's the only foreigner to have received that award. So our linkages go back to 1971. But if we fast forward a little bit, since that time, there have been very, very close people-to-people links between Australia and Bangladesh. And these have largely been forged through education. We've had a large number of Bangladeshi students in Australia, through migration, but also through our mutual love of sport. We're also both members of the Commonwealth, and so we share the values and principles of the Commonwealth. We work together very closely in international fora on big international issues that are important to both our countries. So these are the elements, these are the ingredients that enable us to have our continuing friendship.
As you mentioned that we are sharing many common values, many common tradition ties, including Commonwealth, including people-to-people contact, and you mentioned about we have a very brisk connection network in education and also in sports. If you in particular talk about the education, how many students right now studying in Australia? Do you have any figure?
Sure. We've had a very long-standing education relationship, and at any time in Australia there are around 6,000 Bangladeshi students. We have in Australia the third largest number of international students after the UK and the US. Oh, okay. So for a small country, we have a lot of international students from all sorts of countries around the world. Our universities provide very high quality teaching and research, but also student support services. And this makes Australia a very attractive destination. In fact, 8 out of the top 100 universities on the QS World Index are Australian universities. We have 4 in the top 50. So our high quality education delivered in universities in very livable cities that are affordable, that have a high quality of life, that offer employment opportunities for students. These are the characteristics that are very attractive.
Welcoming or inviting increasing number of students in the coming days from Bangladesh?
We are. Our academic year starts generally around February, March until the end of the calendar year. We do have campaigns to attract students to Australia, and they're quite successful. But we also have around $200 million in Australian government money devoted to scholarships for students from a range of countries. And that leads me to another element of our education relationship, and that's the Australia Awards. These are very prestigious scholarships for international students, for the people we identify as the potential leaders of tomorrow, global leaders of tomorrow. And we have actually, since the 1950s, awarded around 3,000 of those scholarships to Bangladeshis. Many of these people come back to leadership roles, very important roles, to contribute to the development of Bangladesh. So this is another facet of our education relationship. This is funded under our development program.
Australian students also, there is a plan to study in Bangladesh under Colombo plan. Is there anything to see in the coming days?
We don't have any students who are scheduled to come to Bangladesh under the new Colombo plan, as it's called. This program is like a reverse Colombo plan. The Colombo plan was a program dating back to the 50s where students from developing countries came to Australia. We don't have any plans for students to come to Bangladesh at this time, but this new Colombo plan program is a signature program of our Foreign Minister and has been working very effectively in a number of countries. And there is a lot of information about that program available on our website.
We have a very brisk, very strong partnership in sports area also. So any development on that field?
I think we will continue to have very strong mutual interests in sport. And we can see by the history we have in sports in both our countries, in the sports that we love, mainly cricket, we've seen that we've become closer because of that. And of course, sport is very important for a country's identity and represents values that are important to both our countries. Teamwork and discipline and all the camaraderie that comes from playing sport. We saw how successful the Australian cricket team tour was of Bangladesh last year, where the series was a draw. That's a great outcome. We also see in our respective countries great love of football, and if you can see through the FIFA World Cup that's underway at the moment, fans in both countries have been very, very much seized by the excitement of that World Cup, and I'm sure many of your viewers, like me, have been staying up very late watching some of the best games. But there are also new and emerging sports that we were not historically involved in Australia. For example, I've come to learn about kabaddi as a great sport, and we have an Australian kabaddi team that has actually played Bangladesh. Okay. I wasn't aware of this, but this is a new area of a sport very popular in Bangladesh. Yes, yeah. As the High Commissioner, I'm very happy to promote and support women's sport. I noticed the successes of the Bangladesh women's cricket team. I've also done some work with supporting badminton instruction in primary schools to really encourage girls to participate. So these are important areas of our collaboration. Discussing
about the growing number of Bangladeshis in community in Australia, Australian High Commissioner, we have been discussing about our partnership, our strong relations in many ways, and it's multifaceted. We are talking about our partnership in the sports field, in education. And we know that Bangladeshi community in Australia is increasingly, remarkably, significantly growing. How we can bolster that partnership in the days to come?
Well, you're right, that community is growing. According to our last census 2 years ago, there were around 50,000 Bangladeshis in Australia. And about a third of those have arrived in the last 5 years. So they're a fairly new and rapidly growing community in size. Bangladeshis are one of around 200 countries that provide migrants to Australia. We're a country of immigration where immigration is really an important aspect of our economic and social life in Australia. The Bangladeshis have come, some of them have come as students, some have come as family migrants, some are independent skilled migrants, and they're working in a range of sectors, in IT, in medical professions, in financial services and business. So they're making a great contribution. And for Australia, the immigrant community is really important because they help develop networks overseas that help us work, manage, operate effectively in a globalised world. And I think the Bangladeshi community continues that with some of the linkages they have back to Bangladesh. So they're making a solid contribution.
And the Australian government, Australian community deeply recognise and appreciate their contribution in the economic and social life?
Absolutely, absolutely. They're a much valued community, and as I said, they work in many different sectors. And they've helped us build some of the business linkages that are so vital for us to help grow both of our economies.
Our Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, she was awarded Women Leadership Award recently, and she had a bilateral meeting with Australian Prime Minister. So how was that visit? What were the issues you discussed during that visit and the discussion?
So first of all, can I say this impressive award was a very important award for the Honourable Prime Minister, and a much deserved award in recognition of the work she has done to promote empowerment of women and girls and entrepreneurship for women, not just in Bangladesh but across Asia. So I offer my heartfelt congratulations to the Honourable Prime Minister for this award. Separately, in the meeting between Prime Ministers, I understand they discussed the bilateral relationship across many sectors. Importantly, our Prime Minister, the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull, underlined Australia's commitment to supporting Bangladesh in dealing with the Rohingya crisis, acknowledging the large numbers that have come to Bangladesh and the burden on Bangladesh in supporting the large number of Rohingya, and offering to support and stand by Bangladesh through humanitarian assistance that we're providing, but also supporting Bangladesh in international fora to try and resolve this problem. I think that was a focus of the discussion.
How you are looking at the crisis right now? As you are in Bangladesh, you are observing the day-to-day development and the intensity of the crisis. International community, definitely they are standing by Bangladesh, they are supporting Bangladesh, but in the long run, how do you think that Bangladesh would be able to endure this crisis, this huge burden of huge population? What international community can do for resolving this crisis? What is your opinion about that?
Well, first of all, can I say that Australia recognises the burden for Bangladesh in supporting large numbers of people, and notes the significant financial contribution that the Bangladesh government has made in response to this issue. Australia also has provided substantial humanitarian assistance, and most recently our Foreign Minister announced an additional $18 million to bring our total assistance to
$18 million.
18, yes, to bring the total contribution to almost $70 million to provide funding to our partners, our international partners and local partners such as BRAC, to provide those essential services: food, health services, shelter and protection. We have a strong focus on services for women and girls. We believe they're the most vulnerable in the camps. And we also support international efforts to find a resolution to this crisis. So I think Australia stands side by side in Bangladesh in wanting this crisis resolved, and in the meantime we are trying to support Bangladesh with our humanitarian assistance.
We have also, between Australia and Bangladesh, $1 billion trade relations. So, to furthering our economic ties, to boost our trade relations, what are the measures the two governments are taking?
Well, if I could just correct the figure, in fact our trade relationship is now $2.3 billion, yes, so it's even bigger than perhaps the figures were that you had seen previously. It's growing rapidly, and in the last year we had double-digit growth, so that's a very positive sign. We now rank Bangladesh as our 27th largest trading partner, so that's important for Australia. We export many products to Bangladesh that they're primarily agricultural commodities, so we export chickpeas, pulses, lentils, cotton for your ready-made garment industry, vegetables, and other products such as wheat and dairy products. So our exports are largely agricultural products. You may not be aware, but last year over 500,000 bales of Australian cotton went to the Bangladesh ready-made. 500,000 went to the Bangladesh garment industry. In turn, Australia imports ready-made garments, high-quality ready-made garments from Bangladesh. So both our economies are able to grow because of these benefits.
In terms of importing ready-made garments by Australia, where Bangladesh stands?
It's one of the largest sources of ready-made garments in Australia, and in fact we have a couple of large businesses in Australia, Kmart and Target, that have established offices in Bangladesh to help grow that relationship, to expand the imports from Bangladesh. But Bangladesh in turn exports to Australia a number of goods, not just the garments, also leather goods and footwear, increasingly pharmaceuticals, some processed foods, and is also looking at what activities Bangladesh can do to strengthen those exports. So I think we're both in a good place in terms of mutually supporting the efforts of both our countries to grow and expand the trade relationship. You mentioned future directions. We're very keen to do more in the energy sector. We believe we have a lot of expertise in the energy sector, and there are opportunities to support Bangladesh in its energy security objectives, in particular with supply and exploration for LNG, but also in the services sector related to energy. So we have more work to do in looking at what else we can do to contribute to our trade relationship.
My guest is Australian High Commissioner, Ms. Julia Niblett. You were talking about the increasing trend of trade relations between Australia and Bangladesh. You emphasized on relations in agriculture, and you're looking at the energy sector, and you're also praised and appreciated Bangladesh's performance in ready-made garment sectors, and the Australia is importing from Bangladesh. Definitely, these are all commendable. What are the other, splendid or spectacular side you have observed in Bangladesh during your working tenure in the last 2 years?
Well, we also have a sizable development assistance program in Bangladesh, and I'm happy to tell a little bit about that if your viewers would be interested. You know, Australia supports Bangladesh's commitment to economic growth and reducing poverty, and we share the goal of Bangladesh to be an upper middle income country by 2021. So we've had a very long-standing development assistance program in Bangladesh, and we work with the Bangladesh government, but also with multilateral partners, civil society and NGOs such as BRAC, to deliver a development program that last year was around 90 million Australian dollars. The focus of that has been in a few areas in particular that I want to mention. We've had around 20 years of working with the Bangladesh government on primary education, because we believe that primary education is so vital for human development, for enabling kids to go to secondary school and then to go to university or do vocational training or further education that will help them participate in the economy. Primary education is vital, and our very long-standing commitment to that has really helped Bangladesh achieve some great results in terms of enrolments and completion rates in primary education. We also have worked for some time now with the World Food Programme in the Cox's Bazar area, where we are working on food and nutrition programs, including in schools, that are actually helping lift enrolments in schools.
In Cox's Bazar, that is dedicated to the Rohingya people or the common...
And the host community as well.
Host community.
It's increased enrolments in schools by local kids who, because of the access to high nutrition biscuits, are actually increasing enrolments and going to school. We also work with BRAC on a number of programs around poverty reduction. But I just want to underline, in all the different strands of our development assistance program, we have a very strong focus on gender equality and women's empowerment. We think this is vital for the success of Bangladesh, and it is a very important issue coming from our own foreign minister in terms of how we promote development, that we are always looking at gender equality and women's economic empowerment.
You were talking about working with the civil society. Why you are putting importance on working or partnering with the civil society?
Some of the decisions we've made, the choices we make about partners might be around their particular reach or their local knowledge or where they work. They have connections that are very valuable that we, perhaps as a High Commission in Dhaka don't necessarily have. They have a lot more understanding perhaps of the issues in communities than perhaps we would have if we're looking sort of more broadly at what sort of things do we want to do. So we really want to use the relationship we have with some organisations because of the great contribution they can make in helping us understand some of the issues of poverty, but also because of the way that they operate in Bangladesh. At the same time, it's very important for us to work with government on those issues that are important where government might be managing a particular program such as education. So we have a number of partnerships depending on the responsibilities of particular organisations that can help us be as effective as possible through our development program.
In your experience, what are the major challenges? You mentioned that this is a country of 165 million. There are so many challenging, including some menacing challenges we are facing right now, like countering violent extremism, poverty, governance, and so many, and developing human resources. In your view, as a High Commissioner, you have been actively involved with the issues Bangladesh is also dealing with and working relentlessly for improving bilateral relations. In your view, what are the major challenges Bangladesh needs to deal with very courageously, very boldly for the next generation?
Well, I think the challenges that you mention are real challenges for any country. And for Bangladesh, I think there are additional challenges that are quite important, but I see and feel very confident about how Bangladesh is tackling some of those challenges. So, for example, natural disasters and climate change issues, they're very real for Bangladesh. The processes around achieving the SDGs, there is a lot of thinking in Bangladesh and a lot of work involved in identifying the challenges and then methodically going about tackling them. Now, some of these challenges are very, very serious and very difficult for any country to manage, and Australia is very willing to offer.
And you believe that Bangladesh will be able to meet all the goals set in SDGs?
Well, I think there are a couple of points worth making. First of all, Bangladesh had a very positive story to tell around meeting the MDGs, and also has a very positive development story. And there is a very, as I said, methodical approach to approaching this task, which I think is really useful. Now, all of these goals are challenging, but as a global community, we're all gripping up that challenge. I think for Bangladesh, there will always be challenges because of the size and complexity of the population and because of some of the natural environment issues that are part of your reality, especially around disasters and climate, etc. Those are things that are challenging. In your development story, there are other things that are also challenges. For example, managing water resources. This is something which is very important for development. Australia has some expertise in this area, although we're a dry continent and very different from Bangladesh. And we do work together, and if I can just mention, under our development assistance program, our agricultural centre, our Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, works with Bangladesh research organisations across the region, in Bangladesh, India and Nepal, on issues around agriculture, food, land and water. So land is also a challenge for Bangladesh with a growing economy and a large population. That's another challenge. I think these are challenges that Bangladesh itself recognises, but they're issues that are vitally important for its future prospects.
What are the issues impressed you most during your stay in Bangladesh so far? Cuisine or any place or people?
There's a number of things that I love. I'm really enjoying my posting here, and the things that I really love and really appreciate, I love the food, and I love learning things about Bangladesh, learning so much about history, about culture, about the arts. I find the music, both folk and classical music, is wonderful. Learning about new sports like kabaddi is a great thing for me. I think the thing that is the lasting impression that I will always retain is around Bangladeshi hospitality. Wherever I go, whether it's in Dhaka or if it's out in regional areas, people are so hospitable, and I consider it to be an absolute privilege to be able to partake in this hospitality and generosity of Bangladesh people.
And you're optimistic about the future of Bangladesh?
I'm very optimistic about the future of Bangladesh. I think there are lots of positives, and I remain optimistic about Bangladesh's future.
And the international community also, like World Bank, IMF, Goldman Sachs, a lot of organizations are projecting about the future of Bangladesh, that this will definitely be a country of huge economic potential. And you believe that?
I believe it is a country of huge economic potential. That's not to say there won't be headwinds or challenges. You know, our world is full of uncertainty. I think that's a reality. But overall, I'm very optimistic about the direction that Bangladesh is heading in.
Thank you so much, High Commissioner Ms. Julia Niblett.
Thank you so much
for joining me. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Deeply honored. Dear viewers, that was my conversation with High Commissioner Ms. Julia Niblett. Thank you very much for watching this show, and we invite you to watch our next episode. Until then, do take care and goodbye.